So for the first location was here in Goodyear, and that was because I live in Goodyear, right? So the whole goal was to cut down commute. So I had a 5-minute drive to work. And then some of it's just kind of luck. Where I wanted to originally go, at the time, the building wasn't there. They kept saying that the building was coming, it was coming, it was coming. And, I was moving along. I was ready to get moving and, open up the practice. And so I found a different location, which is pretty much the same place we are now, and over in Indian school. And we just started going from there. And that one turned out to be really good. We're right outside of Pebble Creek. And so we have a really good relationship with the residents there. We're right outside the gate. They could drive their golf cart over. There was really nothing else around. Then we opened Kids Place, and Kids Place is just, special. So there's not a lot of those around, like you said. So those are fairly easy to build once you get it set up.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Providers, Properties, and Performance podcast, where my guest is Ryann Roberts, who's the owner and physical therapist of Arizona Orthopedic Physical Therapy, which has a total of 8 sites. And he takes us on a journey from the start of his career to beginning in private practice and then becoming a physician owner of the real estate that he operates his sites out of. Welcome to Ryann, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. Ryann, welcome to the Providers, Properties, and Performance podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So just so our listeners know, you are a private practice physician. You are a physical therapist, and I would say you're a physician owner of your real estate. So do you own all of your locations?
5 of the 7.
And the name of your practice is Arizona Orthopedic Physical Therapy. How many? So you have 7 locations. So how did you start your physical therapy career?
So real quick on the locations, I have 5 orthopedic locations and 2 about to 3. So we have 8 pediatric. But I started my physical therapy career. Is that what you want, or how did I get into it?
Yeah. How'd you start your physical therapy career?
It's a long story, but basically growing up, my parents owned a printing shop. And so I wanted to eventually take over that. So I think I always wanted to be a business owner. And I kind of went into business management and accounting right out of high school because it sounded good. And then my parents told me that they would never sell me their business because it doesn't make enough money. So I had to go find something that I could make a living at. At the time, my brother did sports. He was like a 3-sport letterman, I think, from freshman through senior in high school. He's 5 years behind me. Because of all the injuries that I had and the stuff that I had gone through. I used to rehab him. My mom had back surgery. I went to physical therapy with her. So I just kind of got intrigued by that. And then just when I decided that the accounting, sitting in an office all day, like 8 to 5 or whatever, just typing away on a computer and doing numbers all the time was not something I was going to be wanting to do long term. So my mom used to start talking about different things that I could do, things I liked. And so I started looking into physical therapy. I like physical therapy because you're hands-on. There's so many different things that you can do within it, depending on if you wanted to be in pediatric, if you wanted to be in orthopedics, if you wanted to be inside the hospital, if you wanted to do research, if you wanted to, go to Washington, D.C. and, fight for, physical therapist rights or, what we can do. So there's so many things that you could never get burned out. You could pretty much find something to do all the time with that degree. And so started down that schooling road. So
I see a lot of athletes. So I was just watching the softball World Series, and a lot of the seniors were going into physical therapy after they graduated. I thought that was interesting that a lot of athletes continue along that path.
Because they usually end up in there, right? So then they decided they can do the same thing. So I didn't have any of the, a lot of when I do interviews, a lot of the applicants, they'll say, I had an ACL, I had a shoulder tear. I had elbow, all this stuff. I didn't have really any major things when I went through, just aches and strains and pains. But yeah, a lot of people go through a lot of physical therapy and then decided they can do that.
They try.
Yes, and most physical therapists are fairly active.
Yeah.
They participate in a lot of sporting type events.
So then how did you decide to go into private practice?
So I went to Finch University, Chicago Medical School, came in right out in 2002. Started work there with Illinois Bone and Joint. After the 3 years, we moved out here. So in 2005, right after my son was born, our first kid, and I went to work for Concentra, and I really liked doing that. They helped me get out here, and then I was at the airport facility, driving downtown all the time, sitting in traffic all the time, and that was the bane of my existence. I really dislike commuting, and so I had to figure out something else to do. So I had to either find another job closer to home, or my wife said, stop complaining. So started looking into it, and I said, if I'm gonna change, then, and the West Valley is booming. It's been growing. It's been growing since I think I got here. I came in right at the time of the almost the peak of the housing boom in 05, 06 before it crashed. So everything was continuing to grow at the time. So I figured there was a time to do it. That was the time. And so we started looking into it. I remember we were in Illinois visiting friends on Cinco de Mayo of 06. And that's when we made the decision that we were going to do it. And then we opened the doors in February of 07. So we moved fast.
And what are all of the modalities that you like? What is your full scope of services?
Well, that's a lot of stuff. Yeah. We try to get our hands on every patient, so it's definitely a lot of manual, and then doing a lot of functional activity. And then besides that, we try to stay on the edge of what seems to be kind of popular, but at the same time useful. So there are a lot of tools that are out there that we don't use, but things like besides our hands, we do like dry needling, we'll do cupping, blood flow restriction. I just got a Norman Tech compression system that we're going to be testing out and trying that. But I think for modalities, that's about it. We don't use a lot of electrical stim. Ultrasound is really old. Nobody really does that anymore. So we have all that stuff, but it just kind of sits there in the corner.
What are some of the newer stuff coming out that you see?
There's always trying to get back to like radio frequency. That's been a new one. We have one of those units to try out on loan, and I don't know. It's just another tool. I only have one therapist that actually uses it, but she doesn't use it as much, so that probably won't go. But yeah, everything's kind of coming in cycles. You're back to like the infrared. You see some of that, which used to be diathermy. Now that's nobody uses that anymore, but that's kind of making a comeback. But I think a lot of it is just mainly dry needlings and cuppings and scraping and all that kind of things, what most people are using.
Well, tell me about Kids Place, because I find that interesting. You don't see a lot of physical therapy for kids unless it's like occupational therapy for kids that need it. But tell me about Kids Place.
I'll give it my best. So I mainly oversee the orthopedics. My wife is also a physical therapist. We graduated together. I drug her into the business, and that was great because she's very good at it. But she's a pediatric specialist, so she pretty much runs the pediatric division. I think that's what she's doing right now. She had a meeting, like an interview this morning, and now I think she's meeting with marketing to start going over how the website's going to lay out for the Kids Place. But in general, we have physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and feeding therapy. And so on that side, you don't see, a lot of like injuries. So injuries would normally come over to ortho unless they're really, really young. But over there, they're going to see torticollis, cerebral palsy, kids that were born early, so prematures, so they're delayed. See a lot of autism, all that, different levels on the spectrums throughout, depending on what they need.
Let me ask you this, with those needs that those children have, getting their body to move and learning how to, move their body, I mean, I would think that that's incredibly helpful.
It is, and it's extremely hard and very specialized, and I don't do that. And when I walk through, I'm always amazed at how they get the kids to do it. It's play, but focused play, so it has a goal at the end. So they try to we use a lot of games, toys. The pediatric facility has swings, balance beams, stairs. I mean, they're really cool places to go. There's a lot of things to do in there. When my kids were younger, they loved to always go to work on the weekends because there were so many things to climb on and play. But yeah, and it's very specialized. So, and then the equipment that they use can be very expensive as well. I don't know where I was going with that, but we'll get back to it, I'm sure.
So yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure your build outs are, and I'm sure the space matters too when you're trying to figure out, how to fit all of that in and make space for the kids to be able to move around.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you thought about your growth, how did you go about deciding where you were going to put certain sites?
So for the initial, the first location was here in Goodyear, and that was because I live in Goodyear, right? So the whole goal was to cut down commute. So I had a 5-minute drive to work. And then some of it's just kind of luck. Where I wanted to originally go at the time, the building wasn't there. They kept saying that the building was coming, it was coming, it was coming. And, I was moving along. I was ready to get moving and, open up the practice. And so I found a different location, which is pretty much the same place we are now, and over in Indian school. And we just started going from there. And that one turned out to be really good. We're right outside of Pebble Creek. And so we have a really good relationship with the residents there. We're right outside the gate. They could drive their golf cart over. There was really nothing else around. Then we opened Kids Place, and Kids Place is just, special. So there's not a lot of those around, like you said. So those are fairly easy to build once you get it set up. Right. And then like Buckeye, just looking at Buckeye, I always say I do a lot of things by feel. I look at Buckeye, and Buckeye is just growing. There's really no services there. So that seemed to be a no-brainer. And so we went there. And then when we were looking to add in, I tried to list out my dates here. So I try to get things semi straight in my head, because I know Buckeye was our second ortho. And then we ended up doing another Kids Place. Again, a lot of things that we do are kind of by feel, but also by opportunity. So we had the opportunity to take in, open a new space in Central Phoenix. And so we did that. And then eventually we ended up buying something and moving that. And then we were driving down Glendale one day, and there was the facility going in there. And I think that's when I met you. Yeah. And so we went there. So again, and I was listening to a couple of the other, other podcasts, and I heard other docs say, it's not always, you always try to want to be where the people are or where the people are going. So, in Buckeye, we're right outside of Sundance, and Goodyear, we're right outside of Pebble Creek. The goal there in Glendale, hopefully, is that, it was going to grow and be a more of a medical center where people are coming there for the doctor and all the other stuff. And as they do that, they're going to see you, and it's something that they're used to doing. I think it's Dignity Health. There's a hospital right behind there, just on the other side of the freeway from, Cardinal Stadium and the mall over there. So, and then the Kids Places that you just put those, because people will find you.
Yeah, they'll drive for sure. So when you're looking at growth, it looks like you prefer to own, but you have a couple of lease properties. But why did you start wanting to invest in properties where you have your practice instead of just leasing them?
Well, again, if the nice thing about renting is you don't have to, you're not responsible for everything within the building, but you pay a 2% increase every year. You're constantly having to fight that, and it just made more sense to reinvest in ourselves. Basically, we're going to pay rent somewhere, so we might as well own with that what we're paying rent to. So we try to basically only own things that we occupy. That's kind of where we are right now. I do have the opportunity right now to buy another building that is, mostly full, and it's in the same complex where I already own. So we're talking about that all the time. Like, should we do that, or should we look at, going elsewhere in the valley where we can buy something and then be in it? In Buckeye, the same thing. We ended up building this 7,000 square foot, brand new facility there that just opened last August. And, at the time we were saying we only need 4,000 square feet, so we could rent out the other 3. But then it's like, I really don't want to be a landlord, right? I don't want to have to do the tenant improvements. I don't want to have to be, getting called because something's not working there. I get called enough from our clinics when things go down in our own stuff. So we just ended up, putting a pool in there. So now we have aquatic therapy. So we just expanded our offerings there.
Nice. And when you were when you were thinking about this, when you, at the end of the day, does it lower your overall cost of occupancy as well as build equity?
Yes. The rent right now, that as we get going, it'll go up depending upon, tax breaks and how you want to look at all that stuff. But the what I charge in Buckeye, for ourselves to the two different companies is much less than I could probably rent a 7,000 square foot facility for. So I always look at it as, if I own these for 35 years, and if I spend $1 million to get into it, and then I pay us rent and it comes all back, all that other stuff, at the end of 35 years, if I sell that building for $1 million, I was basically there for rent free for 35 years, right? So I paid myself back probably several hundreds of thousands of dollars that would have been out in just rent.
Right. I think you could probably sell it for more than $1 million too.
I probably could, but you never know. I'm just saying, like,
right,
on a worst case scenario, right? If I can just get out what I put in, then I was rent free. And so that's a huge, income of itself.
So if one of your peer clinicians were to say, hey, I'm thinking about purchasing a building that I'm going to, operate my practice out of, what would you say? Or some things.
If it was one of my clinicians?
No, just a peer, like a friend of yours.
Okay.
Not someone that works for you. You'd be like, why are you doing that? But a peer, of a colleague out there that think, hey, I see you own several locations. How did you start doing this, and what are some things to think about? Well,
I think if they were in business, and they would probably understand it, but it's the so I can kind of play this because when I said, would it be one of my employees or colleagues, that's how I end up having Tempe and Prescott, actually, is that I had 2 employees that were going to these areas. They liked working for us and didn't really want to go anywhere else. And so we ended up opening clinics in both of those. And that's why we're leasing right now. As we try to build it up, we'll eventually buy. And then one of them also does martial arts. And so he's contacting me about, he wants to own. And so how does he go about it? And so I think the big one, and that is people need to understand, right, when they're doing it, is that you need cash. Right. You can't just walk in and go like, hey, I want to buy that building. And, here's, I have like $22,000. That's not going to do it. Right. You're going to need, you need to have cash. You need to build that up so that you can do your closing costs, your down payments, your build outs, and all that other stuff. Yeah. So knowing that you have to have that's big, so that you can kind of save for those things. Because that was the hard part for us when we first started. We were small, trying to buy our first building, trying to get, financing and all that other stuff. So, yeah. But after that, I think it's totally worth it. And then, just making sure that you're planning for the problems that are going to come. The buildings that I own, they are getting up there in age. Like AC units on them are like, 16 years old. So, I've just put on 8 units on 3 different buildings over the past, I think 4 weeks. So, just knowing that you're going to have that stuff coming, and, if you want AC, you might want to start putting money away for that stuff. But I would say just cash flow, knowing that there's a lot of expenses that go into it. And so you need to be ready for them when they come.
And it's always interesting because all the ACs go out in Phoenix in July, and it's the hottest month.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Which I'm sure that they love doing too, right? The
Right.
AC guys, they're like, oh, this couldn't have gone out in January. I'm like, it probably did. Just wasn't testing it.
I know, and that supply and demand, they love that.
Yes.
This is what when I talk to clients, so obviously their first passion is wanting to treat patients during the day. So how do you get over not having the second job of dealing with your real estate, or do you, like, how do you get the vendors or people to manage the properties? Do you have a property manager? Do you have a property accountant? Do you have all of those things in place, or do you do it yourself?
I do almost everything myself. We built the practice now to where Terry and I don't carry schedules, we don't treat, so we just run the business. And so doing that it involves all aspects. So I go down and I change air filters. When they call me when something goes wrong, I go do that. And so I kind of play both sides. I'm in the clinic, doing mentorship or running meetings, but I have great people running every clinic. And so I hate to say that they run themselves, but I have people that run them very well. And so so and I just like the challenge of always having something to do, right? Something that's always coming up. Like I said, now we're building and growing up into Prescott. We're opening another kids place up there. And then, then thinking about where we want to go next. I think there's like a saying that if you're not growing, you're dying, right? Yeah. So when sometimes it's good to grow within and just get everything else strong, but then it's also nice to go out, because there's so many quality. My wife says there's so many quality people out there that when she wants to hire, we just have running out of space. So now we need to open another clinic so we can staff more. So
yeah, but that's great. I mean, you started in the clinic and now you know how to make it successful, and you're just multiplying that. I mean, that's an incredible entrepreneurial story where you can just build better physical therapy clinics, and you know how to do that.
Yes. Yeah. And we're not driven really by the bottom line. We're driven by providing service. Giving them I always said that when I first started off, I always wanted to give the patient something they couldn't get at home, right? A great experience in physical therapy. And I think that my clinicians and the managers carry that forward. And our job now is to give all the employees a place that they want to come to work, where they enjoy what they do, and they have the freedom to do what they do without being micromanaged and, looking down on them and, getting on them about bottom line and all this other stuff. So as long as we're able to operate and, we hit certain numbers and we're able to be successful, then we're good to go. So it makes it nice that way.
How many clinicians do you have in all of your sites?
I think with all the part-times, we're probably around 70, I think.
Great.
Yeah. So that's another challenge in itself.
Absolutely. Well, now we move to the to get to know you part of the interview. So what was your first job?
My very first job?
Mm-hmm. Or
working for my parents.
Yeah.
I worked for my parents, and
did they pay you, or did they make you work for free?
I always said this is funny. My dad's probably gonna kill me. When I first started off, I really don't remember. I'm sure I got paid. I don't remember. At that time I'm doing like collating, like putting packets together, ticket books and things like that. And then as, probably more in my high school year, I think minimum wage back then in Oregon was like $3.50, and I got paid $5 an hour. And so I was making big money. And then I remember when minimum wage went to $6.25, and I was still at $5. And so I went from, way over to way under. And then eventually we kind of got that corrected, but I still remember that.
Well, if you were not in the business of physical therapy, what else do you think you'd be doing for a living?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a good question. I really don't know. There's so many things you can do, and then now knowing what there is, possible by having the time to really look at things and think about them, and how you can take today's capital and roll it into other items, and and all the people I've met that allow me to do these things and be able to communicate. But yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm just pretty.
Looks like you've done more of like the kids' place is a nice branch off of what you were doing, and that's a sounds like an incredibly challenging business to not only get up and running, but then to replicate into several sites and then, provide that care to those children. I think is a fantastic branch off of what you already had established.
That is, and that's all a testament to Terry. She did all that. I just said yes. What else? What can I do to help get that going? So she pretty much, like I said, she runs that 100%. So together we run everything. But what happens in Kids Place?
Yeah,
Terry is the queen.
You're very careful not to take any credit for it.
Well, I didn't do a whole lot. I didn't do a whole lot there. She understands it. She's wanted to do. She's on pediatrics. She knew she wanted to be a pediatric therapist, I think, since she was like 13.
Oh my gosh,
or even younger.
Crazy.
So she was focused and knew what she wanted, and so she had seen a lot of things and knew what was good and what was not. And
yeah.
So yeah,
that's great. So who or what are you listening and reading right now for news, information, or inspiration?
Oh man, I have a lot of stuff out there. That's a tough question. I need to prepare better. I believe the book I'm reading right now is God Said, The Parasitic Mind. I'm reading that. And then listening to, because I'm home a lot, and when I work at home, I don't really have anything on, so I don't, I'll listen to a few podcasts here and there, the Forge and Fury podcast out here, and then Zuby, things like that. I try to read several books going on at different times. I don't watch TV very much. I have the U.S. Open on right now. But so I like to watch some sports, but otherwise my mind's, as I think, always running to some degree. So, watching TV shows, I get bored at the 22 minute mark. So I watch a lot of YouTube short clips and I can't even get through those.
Yeah.
So I got the point, moving on. Let's find something else. So
yeah, that's great. What is one thing that you do for yourself every day for healthy self-care?
I do a lot of CrossFit.
Oh.
So we have a gym in the garage now, and so every day we're in the garage, and it's really hot right now. Yeah. But so put in some more fans, but it's definitely doing exercise, trying to stay healthy, trying to eat well, things like that.
The basics.
Yes. Yes.
Well, then I have two final questions for you because you do both. But when you were, you started as a clinician. So do you think a person is born with the desire to heal, or is this learned only through their training?
I would say that the body automatically wants to heal. Physical therapy in general, I think we try to speed that up. So, what you can. Tissues and bone are going to heal at the rate at which they do, but we try to limit the restrictions, or improve the strength, the stability, things like that to make that quicker. But the body is an amazing machine, and it's going to find a way to win, and we just try to do it so it's less painful or less tight. So,
and then since you now lead all these people in these clinics, do you think a person is born or trained as a leader?
Oh, that's tough. I think it's a little of both. Because I had to learn a lot, but at the same time, a lot of it came kind of natural. When I took my first job as a clinic director, I remember one of the more experienced speech therapists telling me that I was too nice and that I was going to get run over, and it was never going to work. And I disagreed. I wanted to be there and understand, and I'm not going to be forceful and pushy. But then there are times when you have to, where the buck stops. When we had partners when we first started, so it made life easier, right? When somebody requests something or do something, I could say, I can take it to the board, right? And the board would, whether I decided that or somebody else, I could say, well, the board decided this. Now it's just us. So when if there's a no, I said it, and so I have to be able to stand by it, and or yes and why. So I think it's both. I think you have to have a proclivity to do it, and then it's always good to keep learning, keep reading. Like I said, I had this nice bookshelf built here that I look at every day, and it's full. And I try to get through all those books, and I do a lot of other books, just trying to figure out what are the best ways to do things. And then when I find good books, I try to give them to our managers. Try to read these and continue to grow and prosper. And if they ever did leave to go do their own thing, hopefully it's another state, and I could help them out. But hopefully that they would be able to take the things that they learned here and use those.
Yeah, but I think you're always learning. It's like I keep saying, it's like parenthood and marriage, when you're always working at them, because they're always a work in progress.
Yes.
Better.
Yeah, definitely, especially the parenting thing. But.
Yeah. Yep. It is. That's always it's incredibly rewarding, but always you're always. I feel like I'm always on my toes.
You have to be, yeah. Yes.
So that's good. Well, Ryan, thank you very much for this interview. I very much appreciate your time. It was a great conversation.
You bet. It was fun as here as well.